More like just that.
Anyway.
What's up, James?
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, they do. It's in there.
All right, it's on E now. So I guess next thing I'll do, push red board up this time.
You've acquired a beard?
Oh,
Comes and goes.
That's January.
But he's out.
January something new.
Right, it's got a little green light, that doesn't.
We're gonna bring our meeting to order tonight. Mr. Webb has the microphone on. Right now?
So what's that?
Anything? Nothing. It was working.
How you doing?
Lights on.
Yeah, you're right.
Second turned off then?
No. Asking the wrong person. I didn't touch it.
You're sitting next to it.
I am, but I didn't touch it. It's usually not on though. You only feel a little.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we're just kind of-
I'll try to speak loudly. Everybody can hear me. Everybody just have to speak up tonight.
Well, I hope I'm not missing the first 18 minutes of the tape on this.
We have a quorum. There's one person missing tonight. Nan Courage is on tour out west with Dennis, having a great time. Anybody have any comments on the agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda is the minutes from May 5th and May 19th Planning Commission meetings. Any comments, suggestions, corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
So move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is anticipated future public hearings, August 21. I say we got some good news. Invitation.
Well, Bruce today said that as far as, our next, he thinks that everything's to be ready for July 7th meeting. We should be able to go back to the auditorium, so we'll keep you informed on that.
Anything else?
So, we go over this, public hearings, 2 items A and B.
I figured you had something.
Okay,
you wanted to-
yeah, on A, really just an FYI, they're still working with REC and reimbursements and finances and all that, so it's just we get something on the D item. I think we had an agreement. I'll just have to make sure the board, we haven't met with them. My feeling is that the board of supervisors have been in the meetings and discussed these amendments. So I don't think there are any issues about maybe go ahead and advertising this. It'd have to be from August. So it'll be at least the board, like for the board to see if we move forward, but I think the political signs, I think the appropriate move is just to add from our code. Don't even think what we have. I know we had a code section that was totally.
Megan?
Yeah.
On the political signs, item 4B.
Yeah.
Are you gonna need anything else from the planning commission as far as getting them to the board of supervisors and public hearing?
No, I mean, I'll just at some point let them see this before, the public hearing wouldn't be until August. Just based on advertising, so I think they're in boards in concurrence with deleting that 12-1-2. And then there's 14-4 for special use permits. I don't see any reason in my, there was any issue with advertising that as well, put that on the August agenda. So that was definitely.
Normally, they put that in the form of a resolution. The word of the day of the hearing, so they can vote on it. I'm assuming you're gonna do that. If not, let us know.
Yeah, we'll do a resolution for, for August. Planning commission have their hearing. Board supervisors approve it, they'll sign a resolution, then it'll be codified.
Have to have a public hearing on that.
That's right. If you go on to discussion item 5, this is, I think there's several people here. I'll let Jamie talk about this. Jamie Wilkes, the building official. Basically, from what I understand, when it comes to the well being drilled, creating a well log with the health department prior to your department issuing a building permit. We are, I say we, as in Madison County, are somewhat of an outlier. James said he's never heard of it before. With some of the builders, and we're kind of an outlier in Madison, except installed before we start construction, is well drillers are sometimes on different schedules and contractors, and we have to get a well driller out there, drill and put the well log established with the health department, who can really, from my understanding, talking to the contractors that come in. It can be quite difficult sometimes and sort of reverses the process that they're sort of used to. So I'll let Jamie, if he wants to just talk about that. That's something that we've gotten some feedback from the contractors and folks in the community. Now, in the code, the zoning code, there's also some sections that the red is on item 5A that could also be deleted, but just as Jamie describes it, it's just sort of, you have to follow state uniform building code. Some of this information in our code isn't properly worded, I believe, so he just recommended just deleting it. So, Jamie, you want to? Sure. Cover that.
Well, good evening, everyone. And when I first came to Madison,
Excuse me, you are Jamie Wilkes.
I'm sorry, Jamie Wilkes, county building official. Sorry about that.
Just for the record.
When I came to Madison, they had this requirement in the zoning ordinance that a well must be drilled and producing water before the building permit. The way the building code is set up, you gotta follow the code, but there's also a caveat in there. You have to follow every other local, state, and federal ordinance. This requirement to have the well drilled is very unique to Madison. I've never heard of it. I know a lot of building officials throughout the state. On the other side of the state, it is not done. It seems to be an extra burden put on a lot of people. The way it works in the state is there's a memorandum of agreement with the Virginia Department of Health. They regulate, permit, do inspections. So typically the way it's done is they issue permits. Well, yeah, construction permits for wells and septics. And we get those to ensure that they can install a well or septic on a certain site. And then we do our plans review and all that, and it's part of the process. Here with the extra caveat of requiring the well to be drilled prior to, it seems kind of burdensome on a lot of people, contractors. It doesn't affect me one bit, so I just put that out there. But it does on the contractors, homeowners. I'm told by a lot of them, construction permits get, not construction permits, construction loans get held up. So you need a building permit before you get a loan. You need a well drilled using water before you do that. So it kind of creates a problem for a lot of the builders. I've always seen and talked to a lot of building officials. They have a construction permit from the health department. That seems satisfactory. I won't say everywhere in the state, because I don't know every single jurisdiction, but all the ones that I'm familiar with, and I know a lot of building officials. And I've talked to different builders here, talked to some of the surrounding counties, they don't do it. It seems kind of like extra burden on them that's unnecessary. If they have a permit from the health department, that's satisfactory, because before we issue a CO, we're gonna get a operational permit issued from the health department and a record of final inspection for the well, saying that well is potable water, safe to drink. It's kind of the gist of it. Talked to some builders, we got some builders here that I asked to come speak so you could get that from them as well. You're probably familiar with them. As to some of the other stuff in the ordinance, they talk about the zoning ordinance adopting the building code. It seems to me there's no purpose for it. The zoning ordinance doesn't adopt the building code. The state adopts the building code. They enforce that. Do you have any questions about anything?
Peter?
Jamie, I've just been through this process. And my initial instinct when I heard about the requirement for a well before building permit was same as yours. Why do we do this? And I heard some horror stories about people building houses and then not being. Then my architect brought somebody in to try to ensure that we had water on the site we wanted to build. And that became problematic for some period of time. I was glad at the end of the day that we were required to find water before we built a house. So I can understand how contractors may feel about this, they want to get going. But from the standpoint of the homeowner, person that's building the house, paying to build the house, it seems to me that there's a certain amount of logic involved in the requirement that who wants to spend whatever it costs to build a house, and only to find can't use the house.
I understand what you're saying. Now, I will say, like, the same with the building code. You have to meet the bare minimum standards. Not that says you can't go above and beyond that. Not that says maybe the homeowner contractor could still do that. I've also talked with the health department and brought up the situation. What happens if they do drill a well and they cannot get water? They'll never get a CO. You can't occupy it, but they have alternative methods of having water. There are rainwater collection systems. I'm not real keen on it. Good system. They have even told me you can have a water tank, like a cistern, to supply water. It's a different process. I'm not big on it, but it has been done. I've seen rainwater collection systems twice, approved by the health department.
Pete?
I remember when this got put in effect, and I've been around for a long time. And one of the things that when this got put in effect, we didn't have the technology and the machinery that we have right now. These well drilling machineries is out there right now. They can drill down so far and take a fracker and frack that rock, and water can come from everything. The technology behind well drilling has changed tremendously since this was put in effect. I understand years ago why they put it in effect, because there were some places in the county it was hard to find water. But with the technology now, I talked to Mr. Wilson, I know him well, that has a well drilling service, and with the technologies that's out there now, it's incredible what they can do and how fast they can do it. I see this as like you do, as a real burden to contractors, where I just think with the technologies out there today, I don't think there's any place you can't get water. I really don't.
Burger.
I agree with Pete, like Pete says, is with the technology we got now, you can probably get water most any daggone place. You gotta do, if you got the money to pay for it.
What else?
In board, a couple contractors here, would it be okay if they spoke?
Just a second.
Yep.
Yes. Comments? I don't necessarily see this. I understand where you're coming from and the other amendments to the zoning ordinance to eliminate duplicating things. It's already covered by the state code. I understand that. This does offer some protection to people buying property in homes. Just as if there was an instance where they could not get any in a bad sort of way. However, I understand what Pete's saying, and I saw an example of that about 6 months ago. Where they drilled a well, they couldn't get any water, and they fracked it, and they got water. It wasn't that much. They got it, and they got their oxygen permit, and we're living there now. Okay. So I understand where you're coming from. Now, you say you have some actual contractors here like to speak on this issue?
Yeah, that's all right with you.
Yes, please, go forward.
Probably know Chris Kelly.
Good evening, I'm Chris Artelli Construction. Been building homes since the mid or late 1980s. I also remember when this was put into place. It has been a burden from sometimes it's been inconvenient, sometimes it's been a tremendous burden where people have practically lost their mortgage commitment because we can't get a well truck into the job site before we start construction. A lot of times you got a wooded lot, and you have topography fighting it, hills and things. You got weather to deal with. You get your site work guy in there, you build your driveway and your entrance, and clear your lot, move your trees, get your excavation going. You gotta do all that just to get the well truck in there. And then you gotta depend on weather. It's too muddy, you can't get in. And then you finally get all the site conditions ready to get him in there, but he's all tied up and he's a county and he can't get to you for another few months. And in the meantime, your site work guy, he's got to pack up and he's got to go somewhere else. He can't sit there waiting on you. This is a scenario that is played out over and over and over again. It's not helpful. I think it does more harm than good. Years ago, we had the option to go deeper. We sometimes had to move over, get another well. I've never had a case where we didn't get water. Today, with the fracking technology, if they don't get good water on the first drill, they just set that machine up. By the end of the day, we've got water. I mean, the technology has come a long, long ways. I think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist anymore. More harm than good. To the point that Jamie made, we have to have an approved well site before you get started. Before you have a building permit, you have to have an approved drain field site before you get started. You're not requiring somebody to install a drain field before they start. They can start installing a drain field and get some unforeseen problem that was not uncovered with the 3, 4, 5 test holes that were done. And a homeowner or a contractor always has the option to drill their well first. Nobody says they can't do that. If they have any concern about that, they can always put their well in first before they go any further. That's about all I have to say about it. Anybody have any questions for me before I sit down?
Questions on the planning question?
Okay, thank you for
Thank you
giving
very
me
much.
time.
Is there anyone else want to speak on that issue?
LS, another local contractor?
Oh, don't mind turning on the microphones. Push the buttons on the thing.
I think one of them might be on.
Doesn't work.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Well, it's green, but it's not red.
Try that down. Yeah, I think. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, does
All right.
This one doesn't work?
No, Mike lost it.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good job.
Do you want to use this one?
Yeah, I'm testing 1, 2, 3. That one works.
Never mind.
You go, Mike.
It doesn't anyway. It's back up about 5 feet.
What about?
All right, next gentleman.
Land, you want?
You want this one up there?
I can speak up. Yeah, I'll talk. I'm Al Esch, I'm from Country View Homes. We're based out of Culpeper, Bill here in Madison.
What was the name again, sir?
Al Esch from Country View Homes.
Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate what Chris said. We all run into that same thing. It's also, I can choose to take the risk or not. And the scenario that he played out is something that happens constantly. Of the well drillers are busy, can't come for 3 weeks, we can't start the project. And let's say for an example, I build 8 houses this year. And that happens, I lose 3 weeks on each project. That's 24 weeks. That's a house and a half of profit that I lose simply over a rule that I feel like as a homeowner or as a contractor that I should be able to take that risk. It's not the county making the rule that I can or cannot do it. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. I assume no one had any questions. Thank you. Okay, there was other issues on this number 5A as far as amendments other than the well thing. Or was that the only item that you were concerned about on 5A was the elimination of the well requirement?
That's right. And, honestly, this is, we can, I don't know if we get a consensus tonight. I mean, it's really just a recommendation of the plan commission. If you want to think about it, my feeling, and just being, when I was in real estate appraisals, I constantly seeing houses that were on cisterns. Not real common, but it's not that unusual. So, if for some reason there was I think what Al said, take a little bit of risk, obviously, and I think he made a very good point. That technology.
Can you have functional?
Yeah, I don't mean to the technology has, hello, this one's working. Did you work?
Mine's working.
Yeah, this was working.
Got 2 there.
That one is not working. That one's dead.
We can share down there.
This one works.
Yeah,
I guess.
Hello, okay, all righty.
Batteries.
Strangers in the night.
You get paid extra for that, right?
So, the technology of the drilling has changed. I think that's a very good point. I mean, it's just something that we hear from the contractors often, and I think Jamie seems to think that it's not necessary. Sure, I mean, I guess maybe it could save someone some heartache. But again, I kind of go back to the whole sort of argument that if you did build a house and you weren't able to find water, there are alternative methods for getting water in a worst case scenario. So I guess if there is if you want to just sort of do an informal consensus of how, for a recommendation, that would be fine. Or, but I guess it's obviously something the board will ultimately need to entertain as well.
Pete?
I will say like that, we're the only county doing it. So, I don't say that we gotta be like everybody else, but it says something. If no other counties are doing this, and there's truly some places in Colorado County, it can be hard to get water.
Okay.
And I just feel like that, like the 2 gentlemen said that are builders, it can be sometimes a hardship on you, especially in the wintertime when that big belt truck, you can't get it in there. You're trying to get started when you borrow money. But, I think this is probably something that can change, in my opinion.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I'm actually persuaded by various comments. But a great deal of emphasis has been placed on
either the homeowner or contractor is looking at the risk. And there is a risk. Notwithstanding the technology, I found that there's a risk on my property. It wasn't fencing. And it was only because of the requirement that I understood there was a risk. I thought it was ignored. So if we do this, it ought to be incumbent on your office or an appropriate statement in the materials issued by your office that you can either drill first and then build, or build first, but assume the risk that you're not going to be able to get any water, and that you will not be able to occupy that house. Contractors are knowledgeable about this. I don't think people building houses are knowledgeable about it. I certainly wasn't.
Okay. Nathan?
I would say it's about 99% burden to the homeowner and contractor, about 1% benefit as far as protection. It's probably one of the most backwards things in building codes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carpenter, would you like to chime in?
I don't really have that much of an opinion either way, except to point out that it doesn't specifically say what we've been saying it does. If the structure will use a well as a water source, then you need to have the well drilled. If you tell them you're not going to use a well as a water source, if you're going to use a cistern, you don't need the well. So it doesn't specifically say that you absolutely have to drill the well first. But, you know, in terms of the technology available now and the likelihood of the problem, I suspect it was originally put in there as a protection for the homeowner, the property owner, rather than anything else. There are several other things in the way our zoning is done that are also designed that way. To take some of the burden of risk off of the property owner, having them think about something at a time first.
Thank you. May?
I'm listening to the contractors.
Okay.
Builders, who are saying this is a burden and you already have to have the state issuance permit, which you'll get first. You know, I understand the risk.
All right. Francois, you have a comment?
No, I'm just removing this, it seems to be an allocation.
Okay. Thank you. I think as far as the planning commission goes, consensus seems to be that if you want to put that up for the board of supervisors or the planning commission at the next joint meeting, move on.
Oh, okay, so Board of Supervisors meets next week, so we'll get that in front of the board so they will at least have some familiarity with it and see if there's consensus there. And if so, that could be an August amendment as well.
Okay. Was that all you wanted to talk about on 5A?
That's it.
Okay, how about 5B?
All right, 5B. 5B and C sort of go together. And this is the reason why I brought, not the only reason, but one of the reasons was this proposal, Madison Land Holdings, just, and it's not really, at this point, it's just sort of a rough idea. Nothing formally has been submitted other than these kind of conceptual plans. But if you look at the little one-page memo I wrote, 5B, and I had talked to some builders about this, seemed to be some feedback, some good feedback. Most zoning ordinances, and I even pointed out that several locally have some sort of a master plan zoning ordinance. Some places call it planned unit development. In Luray, we call it planned neighborhood development. Generally, you think, master plan for being maybe more urban or town settings, but they also can be useful in rural settings as well. The idea is that you wouldn't necessarily you have to have this lot size, these setbacks. You would basically just propose everything up front with the master plan. You might have 1.5 acre, 3 acre lots, maybe 5 acre lots and 1.5 acre lots, mismatched. And the idea is if you look at the map, which is on 5C, you see those 3 stars there. The top star is Mr. O'Bannon's, well, he and his partners own all 3 of those parcels. But you can see where the housing development is sort of, all around here. And also I would note that 40-48, right atop here is another, that's A1 zone at the very top of that little map. That recently sold, and that's 76 acres. And that kind of, to me, looking at the comp plan and, that whole corridor there on Fishback Road, to me is it's already developed. You can see there's a lot of housing there. It just seems to me that that whole corridor is really a growth corridor. And it would be nice if we did have a mechanism or some sort of zoning ability in our zoning ordinance to allow potential developers to kind of land plan in a way that sets a long vision for the land and expectation. And if it is approved, it would be sort of tied to the land. And if there wanted to be revisions or changes, they would need to come back. So that's sort of the concept of a master plan ordinance. And I'll just kind of go right into item C. And as you see, the plan that Mr. O'Bannon has presented, again, as presented, this property is all, and by the way, everything on this south side of Fishback is zoned R1. So it's already a higher residential sort of zoning. This subject property that he's presented to the potential rezoning to a commercial pad site, apartment units and storage units, that is zoned R1. So he could move forward with an application and say, I want to zone, this front portion to, but I'd rather kind of maybe before this comes forward, maybe have some sort of a master plan ordinance in place. I'm not really a landscape architect, but I do like to pretend like the one. I would like to talk to Mr. O'Bannon and, just saying this was to move forward. I mean, looking at the apartments, I'd really like to see maybe in being oriented in a different way where we create some green space, parking on the outside, maybe. So just some things I think I could work with the applicant. But as it would stand now, you have to be B1, R3, M1. And that's my idea of kind of, let's just have a master plan ordinance and what you bring forward. And I can obviously put together an example of what that might look like in a future meeting. But all of this conversations on Fishback Road and across the street there, the property that Mr. Esch recently bought, all of this really ties into the fact that, the sewer plant is right there. Mr. Bannon says he has 23 sewer EDUs. We know what the capacity of the sewer is, it's pretty close to full capacity. I think a conversation should be had if this area is going to develop, which it seems like a natural place to develop into housing. What is the long-term future of that sewer plant and water, quite frankly? And this might be before there's really, to me, any real serious sort of density or development that probably would need to be addressed in that area.
But there's nothing to prevent him right now from proceeding if they wanted to.
I mean, he could
attempt to proceed. We don't need any ordinance changes per se.
He could proceed as an R1.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, you can see from his plan, there's some other ideas. And that was sort of I would like to see all of, even the adjacent land. They might not know right now, but, I'm a planner, so I'm always want to look, see pretty maps and layouts. So I would like to see a vision for the whole property. You know, how does in maybe there's a better spot for those. Or you know, I think the commercial pad site is probably a good spot, but maybe there's a better spot for the storage units. But again, against the highway, that's probably not a bad spot. But again, my thought is to sort of we had a mechanism for people to kind of master plan the you know, larger tracks like this. I think we'd get a better end product than maybe piecemealing it little by little. And this is R1, this is B1, this is you know this. So that's sort of the idea behind it.
Okay, on your so-called concept here of a master plan, are you talking about something for the ordinance or?
It would actually be a standalone zoning district. You know, that you would rezone to in part of the rezoning. And I can write this up and really give you better concrete, because I just want to give a rough idea.
Mm-hmm.
But you would come in and that would be your zoning. But when you come in to apply for a master plan, you would need to have some sort of a overall plan for all the land. And it might, you know, it might, again, the whole idea is to give the developer an opportunity to maybe mix match lot sizes, setbacks, different things, as opposed to maybe try to move everything forward in a real cookie cutter fashion. I talked to Al about what will get me thinking about it is a site that was purchased across the street, a 76-acre site. And he was saying, well, this part's zone R1, this part's zone A1. So I said, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we had an ordinance that you could just say, look, this is how I like to develop this. And I think part of it would be open space and all those type of things could be incorporated. So you seem to be kind of interested in it. So
I'd be willing to speak a little bit too.
yeah, as a builder.
Well, that seemed like to me the first thing, since I'm not clear myself, I don't know about anybody else exactly what your master plan would entail. Maybe you need to, if you could put something together and present it to the planning commission. With more.
Yeah, I can bring something forward in the future, next month or so, showing you what a standalone master plan ordinance would look like. But Mr. Bannon, do you have anything to kind of add?
Yeah, I'd like to speak.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Powell Bannon. I'll give you a little background on this piece of property. I bought the first piece in 1972, so it's been a long time coming. And really what I'm interested in at the present time, we own quite a few acres there, but I'm interested in the part that I have on this plan right at the present. And that is, we've got, I own 23 sewer taps. Now, we've proposed 47 units. Obviously, you can't build 47 units right now with 23 sewer taps. But also, I've proposed a mini storage that would go up to about 74,750 square feet of space. This, of course, wouldn't have any impact on schools, this mini storage. We'd use one sewer tap, got one office with one person there. And we're right in a good location. It's kind of hidden. It's actually next to the sewer plant. Acts right up against the sewer plant. And this piece of property is, in my opinion, with the sewer plant there, it's probably the most developable piece of property in this area right now. I understand I've got to have N1 zoning, is that correct? On the mini stores. So I brought this plan forward
It's not a site plan, but to see what I could get some input on what you think about it. Right now, we have R1 zoning on about all the land over there, which I believe is a 2.5 acre lot. Is that correct? 1.5, okay.
Any comments from the planning commission?
I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Would the storage units come up to Fishback Road or would they be down the hill from Fishback Road?
They'll be down the hill from Fishback Road.
So probably wouldn't even be able to hardly see it from Fishback Road. So the zoning on this would change from R1 to M1, which would increase the county revenue substantially.
Just from a tax standpoint on property tax.
And if it's down the hill, they're just a shade off 29, so it would be accessible. So, you know, it's probably a pretty good location for this to take place. And not being able to see it from Fishback Road or interfering with those other neighbors is probably a good place to put this and very beneficial to the county. Like you said, it doesn't bring any schools, it doesn't bring any fire, rescue squad, or any of those needs, so.
No burden on the county.
Burden on the county, except for this home.
I've been getting it to you since 1972.
I would say that it's time to let you do something with the property.
And I'll be 77 years old on Saturday, so this is not a long-term plan.
You definitely pay your fair share of taxes, earn the right to do something.
Anybody else on the planning commission want to jump in? Peter?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting idea. Concept of planning. When I lived in DC, I was very much for planned unit developments on large pieces of property being sold. And it seemed to make a lot of sense. And I can see how it makes sense here too, but it presents in a rural setting a substantial risk. If we adopt an ordinance permitting planned unit development, that it will be an attraction for Northern Virginia developers, and that they will buy up large parts of land and then create planned unit development. So I'm not opposed to this, but I think it is a very serious question that we ought to examine.
Well, this is in the Route 29, what do you call that, corridor? Yeah. In which we are encouraging business, commercial type developments and so forth.
It's in line with that.
Anybody else on the planning commission?
Just something directed. If you're gonna bring this to us to present some information, present the idea basis, I would like to see clarification. These are the advantages that I think that this would provide over the subdivision ordinances. I can see that there's quite some possibilities that would be advantageous. Since the subdivision ordinance as it now stands, like you said, you could have 51.5 acre lots stuffed in here, assuming you got away with your sewer connection.
I think water and sewer, as far as for, you know, it can be a rural type of concept. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dense urban sort of, you know, this area is really probably one of the densest in the county.
Yeah, I would like to see, these are the advantages that I see that this would provide.
And if I understood one of the recent studies which you presented, there is a housing shortage in Madison County. I think there was something came up recently.
Well, there's no place to live out or rent, so I'm not sure.
I think that's the definition.
And that could change. Now, as far as his proposal, it sounds like the storage units are probably the piece that you want to move on first, so, you know, Mr. Ben wants to, we could initiate, if he wants to initiate the zoning for that portion.
That's what I understand. Right now, what you're interested in is a rezoning for just that portion to do the storage.
This portion, and I mean, if we had to just do the, because we're gonna have to have two types of zoning, one for the storage units and one for the apartment. So what I really want to do is get some feedback on what you think on these. Obviously, with the sewer plant in the condition it is now, and I having 23 sewer taps, and I would need one for the mini storage, I wouldn't have a 22, and it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to build 22 apartments. I can tell you, I've been in the apartment business long enough to know that, you know, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And, but I'd like to, if I could get it contingent on this sewer plant, something happened there, it would be okay. But I'd like to get these storage units built within a reasonable amount of time. You know, and I'd like to get some feedback whether you would want to pursue that before I go into a rezoning situation.
It sounds like for Fishback Road, it would be well screened. How about from 29? It's still.
It's woods all up through there. It's woods all up through there.
So there wouldn't be any problem there.
Nathan?
No.
I'm not familiar on rezonings if, you know, there can be a contingency with the proposed use, or if we did recommend to have it rezoned M1, if change his mind and decide to do any number of other uses.
As long as they fit within that particular zoning district.
It would be that tax map on.
Right. Oh, yeah. I do not have a.
Well, I wouldn't be opposed to agreeing that that's what it would be on the M zone. You know, you can always do a profit that that's what it will be. Many storage units. Yeah, and that's. I mean, we're in the mini storage business. We own 23 of them, so this is really what we want to probably accomplish on this piece of property right now.
Well, myself, I'm just one member of the planning commission, but I would not be opposed to that.
Well, we can work on an application for the mini storage units to move forward for August. And I think before then, we can figure out exactly how we want to move forward with that. And then the departments might take a little more study.
That's right. That's fine. That's fine. Can I make one comment on this well situation?
Yes, sir. Please do.
I drilled over 3,000 wells since 1974. I've never had a site that I couldn't get water. Now, I drilled a well, the deepest well I ever drilled was in Madison County at Leon. I drilled that well 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet. TJ Riley, he's dead and gone now, but he drilled that well for me. We got a quarter minute. That's what he said we had. It was just damp coming out. We didn't have any water coming out of the well. We hung that pump 900 feet.
And I thought mine was deep.
900 feet. The next door neighbor was out of water. And these two people were kin. And I told him, I said, now let me tell you something. Don't you let that guy come over and hook on to you. I went by that about 3 months later. I see a hose. It was in the summertime, going from one hose dip to the other. And as far as I know, the Banks family lives there. That's who I built the house for. I guarantee that they're still using that well. And that thing had about a quarter minute is what Gordon Ryan said. I don't know if he even had that. But the storage is what you have in a well. People don't understand that storage. you got a quarter minute and you got enough storage, it comes up a long way. And you have a pump, I tell you, Danny can tell you that what about 5 gallons a minute is about the best pumping they can do. And if it's 900 feet, you can't do that.
All right, any more questions from Mr. O'Bannon?
Hey, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Mike Carter's got a question.
Oh, Cardi.
So I got a question for Ligon. So on this property, Ligon, would you envision taking the property and subdivide to create the M1, or you're gonna have the same piece of property with shades of different zonings like we find quite often already?
I don't think he has to subdivide it. I think we just need,
Boundary adjustment?
we just need to get a clear point somewhere on a map that shows, this is.
So we're not gonna create a new tax map parcel?
I don't think we have to create a new parcel for it, subdivide it. We just need to get some sort of a clear point that here is the M1, conditional M1 zoning, and we can talk about that, but didn't have to be a survey unless you wanted to divide it off, but we need to do a survey structuring critical points. So if he sells it, someone can come in and say, hey, look, this really is rezoned, just try to find somewhere to correct that we know exactly, because there are split zone parcels out there.
Right. Does that create problems for us?
If it's unambiguous, yeah, I've heard of situations where, zoning maps, for multiple zones in a split parcel, and someone says, hey, this is 250 foot deep, but this says 200 feet deep. But with our GIS and our ability to measure and really put points on maps, I think we can be pretty confident, even if it's not subdivided, that we know where that property is.
Okay.
I feel real good.
Thanks, Mike.
I do have a question. So what do you have in mind for the third piece? Yellow?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What do you have in mind for that third parcel, the one that's in yellow?
It's a B1 parcel. I don't have anything in mind.
With the master plan, and I see where you're heading this, what you want to do, but also looking at a contractor's point of view, to hire a surveyor and technicians and engineers to design all that. Is that part of what you want a contractor to do? If they will come in and develop something, and would they be all right with spending that kind of money up front, or would they just propose that they were doing all the engineering?
Yeah, the master plan wouldn't have to be a survey of all the lots. It could really, like, here's the density, this is the layout, this is how many units, here are the lot sizes. I mean, you could get close with a CAD, doing a CAD drawing, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be the actual subdivision with all the meets and bounds until it is approved.
Yeah, I'm just concerned.
Right, and then you would come back with the subdivision, and of course, that'd come to the plan commission and the board as well, and that would have all the, make sure it jives with the master plan and all that. So that's a good question. Yep.
All right, just for clarification, we're talking about only this 39 acres in this tax map 40-20, and you would propose a split zoning parcel all on that 39 acres without subdividing?
Right, I mean, unless Mr. Bannon wants to subdivide it, I think that we could do a split zoning and have a clear delineation of what would be, conditional, when I say conditional, maybe with proffers, M1 versus the R1.
Without subdividing?
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be necessary to subdivide.
Never seen that before. Okay. All right. I just wanted.
What Al just parcel like that.
Okay, thank you. It's because I hadn't heard of it, didn't happen. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else got any questions on that issue? All right. Item number 5D, that's where we are.
5D, okay. So
Yeah, that's it. And I did this today. This one.
And since this really can just be more informational tonight, we don't have to dig into a long conversation about these, but I do want to bring a few of these points out. I've been working with the zoning ordinance now for zoning and subdivision ordinance for 2 years, and I think I'm starting to make some sense of it. And I've always said, I actually like Madison's zoning and subdivision ordinance. There's some ordinances I don't like. This one I like because I think it gives enough information. It's simple enough to understand, and it's not a hard ordinance to administer, really. And I really have come to appreciate it. There are a few things working day to day that I think could be improved. I'll just go over 4 quick ones, and again, we can pick this up at another meeting. The first one is just what it says, adding single-family dwelling as a by right use in the B1. I think it's kind of an implied use because a lot of B1 zone land, actually there are houses on it. Some of them are used for offices, some are dwellings. So I just think it makes sense that on a B1 parcel, if you want to put a dwelling or you have a dwelling, that it is considered a by right use. It's a single family dwelling, as it is in most zoning ordinance. The second one, our family subdivision rule. And this is what I think of all the ones I'm going to come tonight, this is the one I think we need to think about real hard. Right now in our subdivision ordinance, the policy in the past, and it's a fine policy, and if you're going to have family sort of subdivision rules, generally the thought is that family subdivisions, you can do things in a family subdivision they wouldn't necessarily do in a normal subdivision. I'm going to subdivide this off and sell it to the guy up the street. But our subdivision ordinance for families, in the past, if you have a 5th lot that's a family subdivision, historically the county has approved that. But the code doesn't say that clearly. The code just says you have to have no more than 4 lots on a private drive. Now, it doesn't go on and say, unless it's a family subdivision. So that's the one. I'm trying to think, I wrote this today, so I'll make sure. Historically, a matter of policy, the county has allowed for qualified subdivisions to be created without adhering to Articles 415 and 483. 4183 is a private road shall serve no more than 4 lots which use the private road. Articles 41, and also I'm just getting confused here, 4 and 10. So also we've allowed the family subdivisions to not have to, if you wanted to do 5 qualified family members, remember qualified family members is pretty narrow. Daughter, son, the definition there, it's not, second
Legal
residence.
definition.
Right. So it just, so I do not see where we are exempt from, you're exempt from the rule which says you can only create more than 4 and 1. 4 and 1 on a private drive, and the other one is more than 4 lots in a 10-year period. So I would recommend making a amendment, a lot, a tract or parcel created by subdivision to qualified family members shall be exempt from this section. That's the section 415, which says no lot, tract, or parcel lands in C1 Ag Land District shall be subdivided into more than 4 smaller lots, tracts, or parcels of land, including residents within a 10-year period. Again, we've historically done that. I don't really think it's an issue because I don't think most people are dividing family land off to more than daughter, son, or a few people. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer that in 415, we just add a lot, tract, or parcel created by subdivision to a qualified family member shall be exempt from this section. That one's pretty easy. 4183, a private road shall serve no more than 4 lots which use said private road for access to a public road or former county road. Any subdivision of more than 4 lots shall be on a public road as set forth in 47A or a former county road as set forth in 49. Now, I added this. You can see the highlighted section. The private road is part of a private road subdivision in accordance to 481-1 of this article. 48-1 talks about private road subdivisions, which are allowable. If you bring it up front and you want to do a private road subdivision, think of Malvern, places like that. Lots created as part of a qualified family subdivision in accordance to 2.282. 2.82 just talks about who is family of this ordinance may exceed 4 lots on a private drive. Now, we could just leave it like that, but I thought the reason for having a family subdivision is you kind of can enjoy sort of some things that maybe you can't on other parts of the subdivision ordinance. So I just put in, but shall not exceed 6 lots on a private drive. Now, you could just leave that out, that last part, and say if you're a family subdivision, and again, that has been how the ordinance has been administered for many years. There are 5, 6 lots on private drives because they were family subdivisions. It's been allowable. I'm just saying that the code doesn't say that. And I just think it just needs to be clarified. So again, the first one, 415, I think seems to be no question about that one. And that's talking about the time-related issue. Probably not a big deal. I mean, you can do 4 and 10 years. I mean, how many, well, you might have several kids and, of course, qualified families could be stepchildren, aunts, uncles. So that to me is, but I think the sort of the, where the rubber meets the road on this ordinance is 48-3, just to keep repeating, is that do we want to actually codify that? That's how, again, that's how it's been administered. It's not uncommon in subdivision ordinances that families do kind of get some privileges that you wouldn't extend to just regular, quote unquote, regular subdivision. So any thoughts on these 2 items?
This private drive would be totally on the subdivision and connecting to a county road, so to speak.
That's right.
Okay.
You might have family members on the subdivision. You might have non-family members in the subdivision. But if you own a parcel and say it's 4, it's 4, you got 4 parcels on a private drive, and I want to subdivide my 10-acre parcel, give it to my daughter, make it a 5, and that's the 5th one on that parcel. Now, again, that has been allowed. It's been the practice. Do we want the code to say that?
So I just want to understand what you're proposing here is that you would be expanding the number of lots on a private drive, okay, without any kind of contractual obligation between the property owners for maintenance of the road. It'd be a free-for-all on that.
Well, I mean, that's how I think most private drives in the county don't have contractual obligations. Most don't. If you want to include that in this, that's fine. I'm just proposing that we actually codify what we're, either we stop doing it or put it in the code. Because the question's been brought up to me, well, this has been allowed in the past, and I want to do the family subdivision on this 5th lot. Why can't I just do it? I said, well, the code doesn't say it. In my mind, I'm reading it. I don't see.
So it should have been done.
Well, I mean, I think that's just the way it was done for many years, and that's just how it was done.
Craig?
Yes, Mr. Webb, I'm not quite certain I understand the private road. You're contemplating that there could be some lots that are not part of the family subdivision, and then other lots which were created pursuant to the family subdivision. Am I understanding that right?
I mean, it could be. I mean, on a private road, not every lot necessarily has to be on the same family. I mean, it could be, I'm going to, there's 4 lots on a private drive, and I want to, like I said, I want to divide, 3 of the, Yeah.
I think I understand.
Okay.
So the essence of it is what you're really doing, stripped away from everything else, is you're changing the private drive requirement, top limit from 4 to 6.
I'm proposing to go to 6. I mean, we just left out that last part.
But whether it's a family subdivision or not, it's largely irrelevant to the essence of 481, because, or, I'm sorry, not 481,
483.
483. It's just, I mean, wouldn't it just be easier to say a private road shall serve no more than 6 lots?
Well, no, because I'm saying if the private road can go over 4, if it's to create, in this case, 2 more family subdivisions. So you would only be able to go over 4 lots on a private road if that 5th lot were a family subdivision.
And let's assume that it is not a, what I'm gonna call a pure family subdivision. You have 2 neighbors who probably don't like each other. One has lots of kids, the other doesn't. This would functionally give the more fertile. You should have heard the first time it came through my head.
Let's hear it.
But no. I'll get this barred. But the idea is, I mean, what worries me about this, and I've seen this as a practical matter, usually when angry people come into my office, it's always at 5:30 on a Friday night, where they're saying their neighbors being able to take advantage of something. Because remember, VDOT has requirements with regard to the changing of the road. And if it is in a situation where I think we're confusing things a little bit. If we're expanding it to 6, it really depends on, again, just whichever neighbor has more kids. And there's something about that just doesn't strike me as being equitable. I mean, of course, y'all are a policymaking board, but I'm just pointing out, I'm not certain why the family aspect of this matters for the 6.
Right, the Code of Virginia basically allows for, it's not a lot written on it, but it allows for counties to sort of create subdivision ordinances that can be sort of, I don't know what you call it, circumvent, but basically, or lenient on family subdivisions. And that's pretty common.
And I understand that, and that works well in a family where everybody likes each other. But when you're not whenever your 2 property owners are a Hatfield and a McCoy, something tells me you're gonna get a lot of traffic in your office.
Right, and I still say, but by my, that this is how it has been administered. So.
Well, that's just my thought on it.
Right.
Let me piggyback on what you're saying there. I'm familiar with the situation where there's a private road that has 4 lots and 5 houses. 2 of the houses on a 150-acre lot, and that one of the families have 10 children. And I suspect in the near future, they're going to want to add additional houses, maybe without subdividing anything. So it'd still be legally the 4 and 1. But the problem here again is with the road maintenance. The people on that road tell me that this large group that moved in recently are not willing to provide any financial assistance to help maintain the road, which is going to create an issue. And that's why I brought it up. If you're going to do this, what kind of contractual obligation would you have between the families or requirement to maintain the road, where one family is not going to get upset with the other family because they're not doing their part, and they are the ones that have most of the traffic on the road. So that's,
Does the county have any control over that?
no.
In this case, ironically, that is controlled by banks. And the reason banks control it, I don't know if people can hear me, but what a lot of lenders require is a road maintenance agreement. And the workaround that I've seen a lot of people do is there is a unilateral road maintenance agreement signed by the person who needs the work, and he just says he will agree to maintain the road.
it's sort of generic. It's not a duty to anybody else. There are some lenders who were accepting that. Now, I haven't had that issue to deal with in about 15 years, but that was fairly routine. In some building departments' offices, they actually have a form road maintenance agreement that they encourage people to get signed anytime there's a subdivision for this very reason, because lenders do require it.
Recently, sorry, in a meeting about a year ago when we were talking about this 4-in-1 rule, one of the local real estate agents suggested that there be some kind of contractual obligation between the property owners for road maintenance. And I think that's what you're talking about here. But he was on board with, and he was recommending that same deal, that there be some kind of requirement between the property owners for road maintenance. That was his position.
And what typically happens with subdivisions is there is a road maintenance declaration before any of the property is subdivided. And the reason it's done that way is because as soon as you have two different owners that are going to be using the same road, you're going to have what in law school they used to refer to as a free rider problem. Everybody's not going to want to pay their fair share. Road maintenance declarations, and Mr. O'Bannon has probably done hundreds of them, so he knows more about this than I do. But the reason you do it as a road maintenance declaration is you have an economic incentive on the front end of the agreement. And if it is written and becomes part of the land records, then everybody is bound by that. The problem comes up, as Mr. Moscow alludes, when it's kind of the law of the jungle out there, because you have some people who aren't going to pay to do anything. They'll just buy cars with higher clearance rather than putting any money, down for gravel or grader.
Well, let me ask this. So as a consensus, do you agree with the policy that putting a fifth lot, as long as it's family, on a private drive, is that something that you think should be done?
I do not.
What's that?
So I have a question. So let's assume the family decided to subdivide, it's now 5 lots. And then 3 years down the road, that house is being sold to somebody who's not a member of the family.
That's right. You can't.
And what happens then?
That could be sold within 3 years to someone outside the family.
So then we've just created
A mess.
Right. So one of the options is to potentially, just thinking out loud here, if you're going to do a fifth lot of a family subdivision, then maybe that could require a road maintenance agreement.
Is that legal by law? Can you do that? Keep that again.
If you're going to create a fifth lot, if you're going to do a fifth lot, which is a family subdivision, only in the case the fifth lot can only be a family subdivision. And if you're going to do it, you then must present a road maintenance agreement as part of the subdivision.
I don't know whether you can do that or not sitting here. It's just because the problem is you're having to go to people who already have vested rights. And you're saying, wait a minute, I'm going to sign this agreement.
No, that's when they bring in the subdivision.
I am pessimistic that you're going to be able to do that. Now, you could require it as a condition of the fifth lot. Say requiring as a term and condition of the subdivision. But we all know what's going to happen. You have people coming in here saying, well, my neighbor's a jerk, he won't give it to me. I want you to do an end around your own. That's what's going to happen.
And they end up in court.
Possible.
Yeah.
Mike, Mayor?
Yes.
I think as far as family subdivisions, it's a fantastic thing for any county, and obviously people do it. If my parents had, somebody's parents had a large acreage at the back of a, or, at that maximum, and they couldn't divide it out or whether it is, I think that's kind of silly. The road maintenance is always going to be an issue, and whether there's an agreement or not, even if there's an agreement that's binding, nobody's taking their neighbor to court for 20% of a load of gravel or two, it's just always going to be a problem. The family subdivision thing is always going to be a benefit. It kind of embodies what Madison's about, which is, allowing kids, to stay here and in their hometown. And, when you grow up, I mean, I benefited from it. My parents had 7 acres. So they're tough to can't do it again. But, I mean, you grow up in a county and then you're looking at spending $300,000, $220,000 for a basic tiny house right now.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, it's obvious we could.
Just yell. Okay.
All right. Okay.
The new room will have a, we can throw these away or donate them.
We could sit here all night and debate this issue, I think. It has a lot of, it's very complicated. Personally, I'm not in favor of adding any more lots on a private drive without some kind of legal agreement, okay? And whether it's enforceable or not, it would give people something to think about. And if you wanted to, you could take them to court on your own. You do not need an attorney to do that. And if they did not pay and the court decided it's in your favor, you can put a lien on their property. Okay, it can really escalate. All I'm saying is this is not a good thing. I don't think to expand this particular problem any further. That's my humble opinion.
Mike?
Yes.
Listening to this conversation, at the stage I am now, just personal a little bit, is difficult here. Because inherited land. I didn't ask for it. I mean, I got it, and my house is on it, but I've got children. What do I do with it? It's tough. And the road is there. We do have a maintenance agreement on that particular road, and it's at the courthouse, so it's enforceable. Banks, when people buy those homes, they're on that road. That's what comes, and they come to us, and we have to sign off that we are aware that they're purchasing the land, and it's part of the agreement. And we'll see how it works out. I get mine fixed after the last rain. I'm not sure where I've been on it, but I do have to remember one thing that I've been told many times about this ordinance. The other ordinances, those were created, when they were created, for one reason specifically, control the growth in Madison County. Am I right? Those old timers.
Yes, you're right.
It was to control growth. Now, I don't know who made the rule. I don't know. It's before I was here involved. I don't know how that, how it came about, except that obviously there were several of them related, 2 or 3 of them related to that same thing. Keep people from building and coming into Madison County and destroying our agricultural land. That's what I heard. Sort of. I mean, in terms. And when we built our house in '76, we knew that. And what were we going to do with the land if we didn't build on it, if we didn't, I mean, I'm confused. I don't know what I think right now, but I can see both sides, and I think we need to think long and hard, but I agree with the maintenance agreement thing. Like I said, I'll know soon how well that's going to work. It's difficult, and I just came up to think about why this was done. Is that still our attitude? Is that why we're keeping this law, this rule in all these areas where we don't want to allow for growth?
That's what the comprehensive plan says. Yeah.
Trying to keep out growth and trying to keep out people who grew up here too.
Pete? I guess my question is for Sean. As Ligon says, under this ordinance here, it's already being allowed where somebody's creating the 5th lot. If I go into Ligon's office tomorrow and I said, well, I can give you examples of people that's already done this, I want to do this, how can you tell me no?
Well, I think it comes down, think about an old car, right? You got bad brakes. You got some money to put in the car. You're gonna put in a bigger engine first, or you're gonna fix your brakes?
I think there's a problem here. I don't think there's any question there's a problem. My concern is we're talking about putting in the bigger engine. In other words, making the problem that much bigger and more dangerous, and we're not correcting the underlying issue. That's my question. And I think that's a fair one. And sitting here, I don't have the answer to it. I think there's a but I think Ms. Zutz is absolutely right. This is really a policy determination that the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors needs to make. If we're going to relax things and make avenues to additional residential development easier, just understand that's the decision we're making. But I think Mr. Elliott is absolutely right. I mean, this is not, as I said, this is a section of the ordinance and the way it's been interpreted over the years. It's kind of a bad set of breaks. And we need to figure out a way to fix that first.
I mean, as part of this, we could even revamp the definition of family, even when it can be sold. You know, you say 3 years, that is a pretty short time. We can make that 5 years. The idea on the family subdivision is to allow families to enjoy sort of exemptions from the subdivision ordinance that everyone else doesn't get. Like Nathan said, so families can stay together and be on their land. It's not like the doors being beat down, people wouldn't do family subdivisions. I mean, or the fifth lot.
Well, you're
That's-
obviously going to have
but
to talk
there-
about this a little bit more.
Right, but there are people out there who were waiting for an answer, and they came in with that. I said, look, I'm just looking at the code here. I just don't see where I can approve that fifth lot. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Francois.
Yeah, so when does a private road become a public?
When it is built to state highway specification and is accepted into the state highway system. Dollars.
So is it part of the solution? It's no longer a private road?
Well, to bring it up to, right, I mean, the expense.
One at a time, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, generally speaking, the expense, especially in a family subdivision situation, to bring a road up to VDOT standards, usually outweighs the cost of the land and the improvements you want to put on it. So that usually ends that, so.
All right, I have one more comment.
Sure.
I don't know why you're saying you have an issue with this. As I was told 4 years ago, I vetted Grayson when I wanted to do something. We only had 4 lots on a private drive and I could not do it. Bottom line, I could not do it. That's what she said.
But was it a family subdivision? Was it a family?
Was not a family
Okay.
subdivision.
I mean, and not this ordinance, but a lot of ordinances exempting family, and I'll say it over again, is not unusual. I mean, it's not unusual at all, and that's usually the whole reason behind it. But I just want to just be clear, if we're going to do this, I don't want to sign a subdivision plat that I feel like doesn't meet the ordinance.
I propose that we discuss this
Okay.
again at the next workshop
Yep.
meeting because we're not going to have a resolve or come to any kind of agreement consensus tonight. Peter?
This is my opinion.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'll move on real quick. The other two, they're a lot more simple. One, and this is another one that just kind of been kicked around for a while, eliminating lot width regulations. This, in C1, you have to have either side to side, up or down, at the setback line. You have to have 300 feet.
Is that lot width thing
Yeah, lot-
on the agenda?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
This is number 3 on this kind of this supplemental.
Oh, it's not necessarily that issue, not on the agenda.
Lot width was written on the agenda under 5. This is under D. Lot width requirements.
Okay.
Did you get this whole thing?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, wait, I found it.
Okay.
I got stuck.
So lot width, C1, you have to have 300 feet of lot width. R2, 250, 150 for R1, R2, and R3. We also have setbacks in C1, 50, front, 50 rear, 25 from the sides. A1, same thing, 50 from the front, 25. There's some lots out there that just do not have the width. Now, they would not be considered to be, they would not be lots. Several of them are created before zoning. There are quite a few grandfather lots out there that do not have the width. Looking at other ordinances, sometimes ordinances have, road frontage requirements. Of course, we don't have that because of the private drive, driveways and things like that. So we don't necessarily have to have road frontage. I guess that the sort of final analysis is when people come in with building to do, they meet their setbacks, 50 front, 50 rear, 25 on the sides. To me, that's adequate. I mean, whether you've got 225 feet or 250 or 150, I don't really, so why do you have that? And I said, I really don't know why you have to have that. I believe that it sort of imposes a super setback on the lot. On top of your setbacks, you've got to have even more. If you want the setbacks to be greater, then let's make the setbacks greater. But I'm just not a fan as I've worked with this ordinance with the lot width requirement. Setbacks are great. We know why we have setbacks. But again, I think it kind of goes above and beyond. And it does make some lots that could be buildable, unbuildable, because they don't have in some cases 200 feet or 250 feet. So I would just propose eliminating lot width altogether from the ordinance and just go with our setbacks, which are pretty standard and adequate.
Rebecca, any comments on that? Whether we're going to just continue this at our next workshop meeting?
You could always lower those setbacks by going to BCA and that's too.
Well, if you go to the BZA, it should be for a hardship. You can't meet the setbacks because I want to build my house and, there's a rock formation. Instead of being 50 feet from the back, I need to be 30 feet from the back.
But
So
if you got a lot that's non-conforming because of the setbacks, you can go to BZA and ask,
yes,
because I can't have 300 feet, I've got 275 and they can grant you that.
that's right. And we've done that a few times, but I still kind of go back to, and I've told the BZA, what is the rationale behind the 300 and 250 width when you can meet setbacks? I said, well, and I always just kind of go back to what setbacks are basically to allow for the passage of light and air between buildings. That's why they originally were established. And if you've got 50 feet on either side, you've got a 40-foot wide house. I mean, you're going to be able to pass light and air and all those things that need to that's what they're for. So I just don't see the need for, and again, there are some lots out there that otherwise are perfectly fine lots, but they're considered grandfathered because of their lot width. And I wouldn't say they're a lot, but I just don't see it really serving any real purpose, I guess, from a planning perspective. My builders might agree, but and again, what controls the lot is the minimum lot size and your setbacks. Those are ultimately, I think so.
All right, I would propose that we put this on the next work agenda and discuss a little bit more.
One comment
Yes.
for y'all to consider. I don't know the answer to this. This is the first I've seen of this. In many cases, counties have adopted minimum width requirements to avoid the pipe stem phenomenon or the flag lot phenomenon, where you have a lot of jumbled, narrow things for road frontage purposes, and the lots themselves are actually, and these pipe stems, stems to the actual portion of the lot are pretty far back.
Yeah.
And again, these are policy questions. I commend you for suggesting that this be continued, and perhaps even appointing a committee to look at these things kind of as a package. Because
we do have a measure that specifically discusses pipe stems. So that's that's addressed actually, but that's a good point.
Okay,
And I'll go to the last one real quick and let you go so we can go to the next thing. Setback, front setback, you have that rule, 100 foot. If the right of way is 50 foot or greater, you come 50 foot from the edge of the road, which normally is the property line. If the right of way is less than 50 feet, then 100 feet from the center. The issue is a lot of roads, VDOT, we don't really know what the right of way is. Basically, the right of way is a travel path in the road. So we have to go 50 foot, even though the property line goes up to the road, we go 50 foot from the center because we don't know necessarily what the right of way is. I talked to April about this today and we both agree that it'd be a lot easier, it'd make a lot more sense if you just say you have to come 50 foot from your front property line, or if the right of way, if it's identifiable and comes over your property line, then 50 foot from where that right of way ends.
use the actual survey.
What's that?
Use a survey.
But if a survey shows that the VDOT right of way, it's in your property, or that an easement or whatever you want to call it, kind of comes over, then you come 50. And I said here, whichever is greater. So I don't know if I said that properly. I did this today. So if the road's only 20 feet of width and your property comes to the edge of the road, then you're going to come 50 feet back from your property line. If for some reason that right of way extends into your property, you're going to come 50 foot from the edge of that right of way. If a VDOT right of way comes into your, it's identified on your property, comes into your property. So you just have to be 50 foot from the edge of the road. So I think that'd be a lot easier way to handle it than going 100 foot from the center. I just think that 50 foot is more than enough. So
We'll discuss that.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda was the wireless communication facility.
All right.
Mattered around, sometime we can proceed with that, I understand now. And looks like you did a pretty thorough job with looking at the legal.
I have learned more about cell phone towers in the last year than I ever cared to know. We've gone from 6,000 words to 3,000 words, and I laugh because at 3,000 words, we're 2,998 words more than what's in Luray's ordinance when it comes to cell towers. It just says cell tower, special use permit, so it always cracks me up. But I've gone through, taken out, I think what's redundant, left in what's required. We have the balloon test. It's half as long. I think that, as I said in the email, anyone that wants to look at the state regulations are real clear. There's 2 sections in the state code. I've referenced it. I've referenced the federal code. The federal code that I link up on, it's pretty straightforward. I think what I have proposed meets the federal and state standards. I can understand it a lot easier than the one that had 6,000 words. Still got to get a special use permit. Still got to have a balloon test. All those things that really are important things that we evaluate. And I've gotten rid of things that, quite honestly, I just don't think are really germane to the decision that are made on cell towers. I don't know how electricity works. I don't know how a cell tower or this works. I just know what it looks like. It does have a visual impact, and obviously, when this was adopted in 2002 or whatever, it was a whole totally different landscape. Cell towers were almost considered to be, and cell phones were almost considered to be a luxury item. And I think now it's, whether it's good or bad, are considered to be a necessity. So I would, Sean can review this some more. We can review it together, but I would feel like we probably want to move on a hearing on this maybe for August as well.
Well, I've read through it and I don't necessarily have any comments with it. So, anybody else got any comments on it?
I got a question. If I come into your office and apply for a cell tower permit tomorrow, I say I own tax map A1 here.
Mhm.
Is there anything done to check to see if where I want to put that cell tower that I have right away in my home there?
For the property? Well, if you came in and said you own the property, I would look at the records that we have and see that you were the owner. And if you said you're the owner, if it's an LLC or something, and you signed the application, and you know, you're deceiving me or something, if that's what you're getting at, then I'd probably go to Clarissa's office next. Yeah, we always check to make sure if the applicant is not the owner, then who is the owner? And the app,
Where's one built that right now, it's getting ready to go that has that exact property.
really? Yeah.
They did not have a right of way to put it where they put it.
Okay, so they were going,
They thought they did, but they.
right, I got you.
Is that over in the development?
Okay, I was thinking someone just came in and said, this is my land, it wasn't, but they thought they had a right of way to get to it and they don't. Okay, well, then they're, you know, if they have to trespass to get to it, then you're not gonna build it anyway, I guess, but, oh, they did, okay, well,
I encourage everyone to read Liggett draft and have this on the agenda for our next workshop. And if you want to try to get this for a public hearing.
August.
For the board in August.
yeah, and I really went through on the highlighted sections here. I went through, so when we do advertise it, people can look at the highlighted sections and see what was taken out or changed from the original. And that was pretty painstaking.
Moving on.
Last
Nobody
thing.
else has any comments on that? As far as transportation facility proposal. Okay.
Yeah, the last item is just the event venue, and you might have saw the board meeting, or this is just an update. It's not in the zoning code, so it's not necessarily something the planning commission has to review or give a recommendation on, but I just thought since event venues and all that, we seem to talk about that a lot. We are advertised this for the end of July's board meeting. If they're comfortable, the board supervisors are comfortable with these changes. And this is just to create an application process for events, the larger events, categories from 500 to 1,000. 1,000 and great would have a different category. Need to go to the board. So just again, just informational. This was created on, with emergency Brian Gordon and John Shearer and the Sheriff's Department. We all came together for a couple meetings, and I wrote it up, and they're comfortable with it. I think the board's comfortable with it, so that's what's going to be advertised.
Appreciate the sharing that with us. I thought it was very informative, and it's good for my own friends to know what that process is. So yeah, I think it's great. So, and I realize we do not have any input into that, but bottom line is I think it's probably well overdue.
Yep.
Okay. Francois, you were at the last board meeting. You have anything you want to add other than?
The main thing.
Okay. All right. Faye, have you been?
No, the one coming up is the Francois there in June,
Okay.
right? That's what we covered for me, because that's you and me.
What I want to know from you is, have you contacted them?
Yes.
Okay. Are you making any progress?
You got me a lot of favors.
Got a lot of what?
No. It was fun. Actually, it took a long time to get to the basic concerns of what our concerns are. And I had the time that morning to do it. So we met and worked through a lot of things. And straightened out a few things that were not accurate about what ordinance she was looking at and whatever. It says she had from the website, so they are the latest, right, on the website. And I checked out some of them and they were incomplete, so then go back. So she must have done some of her markups on the ordinances earlier, like some of the other things have been changed, I'm not sure. And also, so I urged her, I haven't called the committee together yet, because I urged her to make sure that if her concern is about food insecurity in Madison County, that that's all she sticks to. You know, we don't need to know about an auto shop somewhere else. We don't need to know about this or that. We need, you know, any other complaint in the county. We need to know about what you'd like to see. You feel needs to have more opportunity.
Change in any ordinance, what she says was.
Well, and I also suggested to her that she check out all of our other sources of food in this county and see where people go to get food. You know, with Mesa, with the school system, which has just come out with food giveaway this whole entire summer, funded by this, which I thought was amazing. The whole summer, children you have food. Plus what they do at Mesa and various other places. So she didn't know about some of those, so I urged her, because she works out of town, she doesn't always know everything. Urged that to happen, and then she sent me a revised markup, which I've not gone through. I'll probably wade through that and get it together. We'll look at anything that might be something we might want to work on. I'm not opposed to looking at our ordinances that refer to greenhouses or to other things, but we need to know that that's something we need to do.
All right.
It was productive. It was very productive.
Okay. And last thing, unless somebody else has something else, is I understand there was a meeting with the Rappahannock Electric today. Broadband issue.
There was, as was, and I attended, as well as Tracy and me, Dennis Gordon. We met with a gentleman by the name of Mark Ponton, who was at the May presentation but did not speak during the presentation. But he's in charge of broadband outreach effort going on at Rappahannock Electric. They, their concept now, in light of the Culpeper lawsuit, now, is that they will be a middle mile provider. And their intent is to start putting fiber on homes in Madison County and elsewhere in the service area. And proceed with that, and the notion is explained in the May meeting that they will then lease that fiber to ISPs. We asked whether the ISPs would run fiber from the middle line to the house, and they said, no, we will take fiber to the house, but we will just charge the ISP. We asked if their sites on Madison County were limited to Firefly and the small available area left for Firefly. They said, no, we're interested in talking to anybody, including, for example, Chantel, which is basically radio, but may have some interest in CenturyLink, which is fiber. There are additional areas in Madison County that I personally wasn't aware of that are open. Those are the Starlink areas that were funded by the FCC, but they are not included in prohibition against additional funding for served areas. So there is some opportunity for the Firefly REC partnership, which I don't think is moved beyond the MOU stage. But there is also some opportunity for other REC partnerships in Madison County. We made a big point of stressing that Madison County wants to be proactive, that we want to be involved in these meetings, that we don't want just to be informed after the fact of what's going on, but we want, our interest is to make broadband as broadly available in the county as possible, and we intend to be proactive in pursuing that. And Mark seemed very receptive to that notion. And we talked about meeting with Firefly and meetings, three-way meeting with Firefly and REC and Madison County, and also similar meetings with other ISPs that have received funding from Madison County. So I personally was very impressed that REC is moving forward. They're very receptive. They seem very receptive to what we talked about, and to the fact that we would be more than willing to help them. For example, they're going to have to go around getting easements all over the county, individual landowners. And I said that we can certainly aid them in that effort. And he seemed very receptive to the whole notion that Madison County wanted to push this and wanted to be proactive. And I think all of us came out of it feeling it was a good and successful and an encouraging meeting. Tracy, do you have any other thoughts?
I 100% agree. It's a very good meeting.
It's fun. Kevin McGee was there, and he's on board with all this.
Yes,
Kevin McGee was there,
and it was Brian Gordon.
Kevin was there,
and Brad, and everybody's on board.
and Brian Gordon was there.
Very good.
So,
Nice.
and I think all of us considered very good.
Fantastic. Appreciate the update on that. Sounds very positive. Anybody else from planning commission have any comments? Whatever? Any members of the audience? Anything to say?
Check the cyberspace.
Oh, nobody was on.
Oh, all right, awesome.
I'm shocked. All right. No one else has anything to say? Can we get a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Good night.
Yeah,